Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sexy Smart Aging is the new anti-aging. I am so excited for you to be joining me on this topic. For those who don't know me or are new to my world, I am Dr. Nicole Marcioni. I am the founder of Sexy Smart Aging, and my passion is blending, alchemizing, if you will, the science of longevity with the art of sensual living, right? So, those two things, both the sexy, the sensual living, and the smart, the science. And as I've molded, as I've created, as I've really honed in on this message of what my work is, this blending of these two things, the science of longevity and the art of sensual living, really are the basis for sexy smart aging is the new anti-aging. And so, we live in a society, and you can think about this, like how it's affected you. We live in a society, especially if we were raised or socialized as a woman, to glorify youth or to always seek being youthful, to basically tolerate midlife, right? That's kind of when all the anti aging narrative comes into our lives. And then old age just is insulting, right? Now, this is not what I believe, but this really is what we see all around us. And that is the paradigm shift. My company's mission is to shift the paradigm from this anti aging thinking mindset to a more empowered aging mindset, right? One that aging can be sexy and aging can be smart. We don't have to push it away or resist or be reluctant or nervous or fearful, right? We can actually have agency over how we age. And so as we go on this lunch and learn journey, we're going to talk about how we can shift this paradigm first in our own lives, and then hopefully through our example, create this shift around the world, right? Because that's what this conference, the summit, is all about, future her. So how do we take what we know now and really launch into the future how we want aging to be for ourselves and in general? And so I just want to thank Suzanne for inviting me to be part of this summit and to thank my fellow colleagues. I love being in a list of such amazing speakers. I also want to apologize briefly that I am not here live. When you watch this, I will actually be on a plane headed to Italy, which is my most favorite place. If you have been along for the journey with me, you will know that I am obsessed with all things Italian. I am half Italian. I speak the language, and I even have a method as I bring my clients through their navigation of the aging process that we'll talk about, but is based on Italian philosophy. So, welcome. And let's get into this juicy subject, this juicy topic that I could speak on all day. And I really, really hope that the conversation continues. And so, because I'm not here live and can't answer your questions in real time, I am just inviting you to please reach out to me, either DM me on Instagram or you can email me, and I'll have all that information. I'm sure it will be in the guide, but also I'll talk about it at the end. All right. So what does this mean, right? Like anti-aging. I like to say anti-aging is BS. Why? Because really, there's no such thing as anti-aging. The only true, real, tangible anti-aging is death. So stop and think about that for a second. Like, really, we don't necessarily want to die and we don't want to grow old. And yet we all want to live long, happy lives, right? So, how do we reconcile those things? It can be difficult. And so, once we accept, right, that no one gets out of this journey called life alive, right? We're headed towards death, no matter where we are in our journey, whether we're 25 or 85. And we don't know when that time is going to come. And so, how do we live our life now? Almost like uh, putting in deposits at the bank for your retirement, right? When you go to retire, hopefully you've been saving for quite a while and you didn't just start saving like 3 years before you decided to retire, right? And so it's the same thing with our aging. We want to realize, okay, anti-aging doesn't really exist. And instead, how are we going to live our life in a way where it keeps us from an accelerated aging process, basically, right? We want to delay the process. We want to elongate it for as long as possible. And if we can do that, then we can feel that smart, sexy, invigorating, empowered in ourselves and our body way of aging. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit. And I want you to take a moment right now and thinking about, what does aging mean to you? Or how have you looked at aging? Like, what is your perspective on it? What is the lens through which you look at life and aging? And this is really important because a lot of us have past conditioning. A lot of us, like I talked about, we have, societal inputs about not wanting to age and not being happy with how we look or as we age, or how we feel as we age, or have we accomplished what we were expected to accomplish as we age, right? So there's all of these beliefs and thoughts that are kind of running on the background. We may not have them in the forefront, but they're there guiding our decisions on how we're living based upon what we think about growing old and aging. And most of us don't think about our life and how we are living right now through that lens. But I'm going to invite you to take maybe 10 or 15 seconds and just write down the top 2 or 3 things that you feel about aging. Okay. This could be, I'm scared, I'm fearful, I'm excited, I'm uncertain, I'm enthusiastic, I'm open, whatever it is, without any judgment around it. Let's just see what's going on in your heart and in your head. And it's probably more in your head than what's in your heart, but those might pop up too. Now, aging well, what we've been taught or made to kind of take in, right, is aging well means you look younger, you have energy, you eat well, you move your body, you manage stress well, right? All of those things. And I'm here to say yes, 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 and yes, all of those things. And it's so much more, right? It includes our mindset, which I talked about. It includes are opening up to opportunities to deepen our connections to ourself, to others, to our dreams, to our desires, really getting intimate with those desires, getting intimate with our intuition, with that gut feeling, with our inner knowing. Because especially as women, we have been taught to put that aside, either literally or at a more subconscious level, right? To not listen to our bodies. In fact, to think of our bodies as dangerous, to think of anything that would bring pleasure or feel good to like run the other way, to believe that if we want to be successful as we age, we have to do it in a hustle and grind, more masculine way, right? And so a lot of us have been taught to shut down our intuition, our inner knowing, that feminine magic, really, that all of us have, but no one's taught us. Well, maybe if you've been lucky enough to figure things out a little bit, but in general, no one's taught us to actually sit back, be still, and listen to figure out what our magic is. And so many times in life, people come to that realization too late. They come to that realization when they're dying, right? They look back and think of, wow, I could have been so much more magical, or wow, I really wish I would have taken advantage of that opportunity, or wow, I regret XYZ. And so if nothing else comes from this time together, I hope that what you will take is looking at your life now from the person you are on your deathbed, looking back, right? So I like to say, when I'm 103, I really believe I will live to about 103. I will have just taken a walk out in the woods, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm going to think about my life, and I'm going to look back and say, Nicole, you did good. You lived this life to the fullest. You made the hard choices, even though they were scary. You connected with people on such an open level, even though it was vulnerable, right? You released the shame, the judgment, the guilt, even though it was hard and you were taught otherwise. All of these things, when I'm 103, looking back at this time in my life, knowing the choices I'm making are through the lens of how I want to remember my life and how I want others to remember my life. And so that is why it's so much more than a certain way of eating, than, biohacking your way into youth, all of these things. So how can we age in a way that is both sexy and smart? I work with my clients through a method that I like to call La Dolce Vita method, right? LDV, La Dolce Vita, which means the sweet life in Italian. And what I like to say LDV stands for is longevity, desire, and vibrancy. Those three categories. And so we're going to go a little bit deeper into each one. And I want you to have an open mind about these three things being equal in importance. Because a lot of times we'll put one on a pedestal or above all the others. And usually that's the science part, the longevity part. But what I'm hoping after our little talk today is that you'll realize how important these other two things are. Okay. So let's get started. If you haven't gotten a notebook yet, and a pen or pencil, like you might want to take some notes. If you're like me, I'm a big note taker. Or obviously this is recorded and you're going to have access to it. And so, you can rewatch it later if you just want to be very present with me right now. So longevity, the science of longevity. I did not mention this at the beginning, but I have 2 graduate degrees in the field of gerontology, right, which is the science of aging. So my master's and my PhD are both in that field. And so I am the biggest nerd. Give me all the journals and scientific articles and white papers, right? I love studying about the science of aging. And it doesn't mean like the science of old age. Gerontology is the study of aging over the lifespan. So a gerontologist could study people in their 30s, they could study people in their 80s. Okay, so I just want to clarify that because a lot of people, when I talk about gerontology, they say, oh, you mean like old people and diseases? And I say, no, that's geriatrics. So just so you know the difference, I am not a geriatrician. I am not a physician that treats patients who are old. I am a gerontologist, which is someone who studies aging over the lifetime and helps others to create that lifetime that they want. Okay, so back to longevity and the science. Here are the things, the like big picture. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty just because we don't have the time. And if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, please reach out to me and we can figure out a way to do that. But big things, big picture things to live a longer life on the science part are inflammation. Inflammation is a very, very big topic right now. It's trendy. I've been talking about it for a decade in my studies and my dissertation and in my work, but the research is solid now that all major diseases of aging, and in general, not just aging, because certain diseases happen even when we're young, like diabetes, obesity, these things are caused. The basis, the foundation is inflammation. So how do we create a life that lowers our inflammation levels, right? That's the question we want to ask. Now, we can't have no inflammation at all because we're humans and our immune systems, we want that inflammatory response when we're sick. But what happens is because of our lifestyle, in modern day history right now, this lifestyle causes us to have very high levels of inflammation. And this is brought in through the foods we eat, through the chemicals we're around in our environment, like cleaning products, skincare products, what's in our water, pesticides in our food, all of these things, pollution in the air, right? Stress brings on very high inflammation levels. So our systems are, it's called our autonomic nervous system, where there's 2 branches. There's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And our sympathetic nervous system, you've probably heard of flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. So that's what kicks in when we're in a dangerous situation or when our body and our mind thinks we're in a dangerous situation. Whereas the parasympathetic nervous system is our rest, digest, heal, and repair. And those 2 things can't be on. Those 2 systems can never be on at the same time. It's either one or the other. And so if we're constantly in this sympathetic, stressed out system, that puts our whole body on high alert and causes us to create all kinds of hormones and neurotransmitters that cause inflammation, because basically our system thinks we're getting eaten by a bear, that we have to outrun it, that we have to like fight it, or that we have to stave off if we got caught and bit, right? We got to heal it and shut things down so that we can run away. meaning like infection and all of that. So that was just a very brief, very quick, which could be its own whole course on inflammation, stress, how those are connected, and what we can do to step out of that. So, how do we lower our inflammation levels? One, we stop eating things that cause our gut and our system to be inflamed. Well, Nicole, I don't know. How do I know what I'm eating? That depends. We're all bio individuals, right? We all have a unique way of how our systems work. So what's inflammatory for me may not be as inflammatory for you. But I will say the five like big ones are dairy, gluten, corn, soy, and I forgot the last one. I'll come up with it. But sugar also causes a lot of inflammation. Um, if you want to know even more specifics, which I've done for myself and I do with my one-on-one clients, is you can get a food sensitivities test, and that will give you very specific information on what your highest sensitive foods are that are causing inflammation in your body. And then you can eliminate those, right? So inflammation levels, lowering them, figuring out what you're eating that could be irritating to them. Another thing is, I already mentioned environmental, get the poisons out of your environment, right? So drinking purified water, staying away from things stored in plastic, having clean, quote unquote, clean beauty products, cleaning products, things like this, trying to eat in a way that is local, fresh, unprocessed, and if possible, organic. Not everything needs to be organic, but if you do eat meats, animal products, cheese, dairy, things like that, and certain vegetables and fruits that are sprayed with a lot of pesticides, do some research. You can find like the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen for vegetables and fruits that are the ones that are the highest in pesticide levels and the lowest. So do yourself that favor. When we keep our inflammation levels low, then our gut is able to do its job and our brain is able to do its job, right? And so these two places, we see a lot of talk right now in wellness, in biohacking, in health, all about gut and brain. And rightfully so, because if our gut is not working properly, is not functioning properly, is constantly being assaulted by what we put in it, then that actually takes a toll on our whole system because so much of our health starts in our gut. It affects our reproductive system. It affects our brain. It affects our sleep. It affects our heart. It affects so many things. So usually a really good place to start when we're talking about the science of longevity and wanting to age well is our gut. Okay. Our brain. We want to keep our brain healthy as we age, right? I don't know if you know anyone who has dementia or Alzheimer's, but is not something that any of us desire upon anyone, including ourselves. So knowing what helps our brain, again, keeping our inflammation levels down, sleep. Sleep is huge for brain health. While we sleep, our brains actually clean themselves out. It's called the glymphatic system, like lymphatic, but with a G. You can look that up. And it's so cool. So every night when we sleep, our brain actually shrinks and the cerebral spinal fluid increases in volume and basically is like a car wash, right? It just cleans out all the junk and then brings in all the good nutrients. So if we're not sleeping well, that system gets gunked up, you might say, and can lead to brain health issues, brain fog, lower productivity levels, hard to pay attention to things, and eventually could lead to dementia. Now, a lot of this stuff we're talking about also our symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, right? When we're talking about sleep or gut or brain fog, um, these are being affected. So as women, it's even more critical for us to be looking at these things as an individual, what we actually need and what changes we might need to make. Um, and then the last thing I'll talk about on this topic is, or on the under the guise of longevity, is stress resilience, right? So another way to bring down all those inflammation levels are to make sure we know how to be resilient in our stress. So it doesn't mean get rid of stress. Like if you're a human being living on planet Earth, we will, you will, I will have stress. And not all stress is bad, but what happens is our systems get overwhelmed by stress. And then it starts to turn on these high alert systems and shut down the heal, the reproductive, the rest and digest, right? Because if our body thinks we're in danger, it's not going to want to eat or digest well. It's not going to want to have sex for sure. We don't need to be, from an evolutionary point of view, procreating while a tiger is chasing us, right? So if you have any sort of things going on with libido or low desire or too tired or fatigued, like that is something that is not frivolous, but is something to really look into, because one, it could be because your stress levels are so over the top. It could be that hormone levels are in flux and maybe you need to see a primary care physician around that, or a specialist, right? Who deals with perimenopause and menopause and maybe talks about hormone replacement therapy or herbs and supplements or other ways, that other therapies that can help bring lower stress levels so that you can enjoy your life, right? And so that's going to take us into desire. So that was longevity. Now we're going to talk about desire. So I like to call like a lot of us are in this midlife Bermuda triangle, you may say, where we just get sucked in to so many responsibilities, sucked into so many others problems and responsibilities of others, that we aren't able to pay attention to ourselves. And this can be kids, career, aging parents, a partner, right? Friendships, transitions, retirement, whatever it is, midlife, which midlife is basically from, let's just say 40 to 70, 35 to 70. That's a lot of stuff going on. And it's a time where we finally take a moment to look at what our lives are, right? It's a time where we're like, wait, I've been doing this. I've been running this race. I've been putting everyone's needs before mine. And now I realize life is halfway over. And I'm looking down like equal parts forward as behind me, or maybe less time ahead of me than behind me. Who knows, depending on where you're at on this chronological timeline. No matter where we are on that timeline, we can always stop and figure out, what do I really want? When's the last time someone asked you, what do you really want? What do you want out of life? What do you want to feel? How do you want to live? And if you've ever been asked that, how many times have you thought to yourself, I don't really know. I don't really know what I want. And that's because it takes some effort and it takes some digging and it takes some uncovering and it takes some peeling away. And it takes a hell of a lot of courage because none of that is comfortable. And so desire, as one of the pillars of sexy smart aging, is learning, what is your desire? What do you want out of life? What are your thought patterns, right? When you think of something you desire or want more of, Do you automatically shut that down and think, stop being so selfish, or that's frivolous, or there's so many other things that need to be taken care of before your needs and desires? Because I'll tell you, you're in good company. Almost every woman I know, that's what comes up, right? We have been conditioned to settle for good enough. And we have been conditioned to feel bad and guilty if we actually want more, even if life is good. If we want to go from good to great, or heaven forbid, you want to go from great to fucking fantastic, excuse my language, who do you think you are to want that? Stop it. Get back in your place, right? Either society's telling us that, religion is telling us that, the patriarchy is telling us that, or that little inner critic is telling us that. But the voice is there. And so noticing, what are my thought patterns and how do we reconsider that, right? Reconfirm our thoughts in a different way, or reconfirm the different thoughts, I should say, instead of those that have just been there all the time on automatic. And so that's when it's important that we look into our mindset, right? Our set of belief system, there could be multiple, and what we think, not only about aging, but what we think about taking care of ourselves, what we think about being worthy, what we think about us deserving love and affection and everything we want, right? Because most of us have been taught that we're not worthy of all of that. And unfortunately, that sinks in deep and has thick claws, like clenching into our being. And so, how do we gently unfurl those and pluck them out, almost like cactus spines? I love going out to Joshua Tree or the desert, and I just love cactus. But like, they have those little spines, right? You got to be carefully pick them out if you run into a cactus. And so, same thing with these beliefs. Like, they're sharp and they dig in, and it takes some gentleness, some finesse to remove them. And sometimes you think you remove them and there's still a little bit left, right? And you got to, wait, I guess I missed a spot. I find that happens to me all the time with past conditioning and beliefs. And so, not to get judgmental of ourselves, like, why am I still thinking that? Right. And instead, getting curious and aware and willing to be gentle to go back in with those tweezers and dig a little bit more to extract what we need to extract. So, how do we become more intimate with ourselves? Because then once we develop that intimacy with our desire, with our intuition, with our inner knowing, then we start to stand in alignment and in integrity with who we truly are. And when that happens, then so many new things open up in the relationships we have, whether it's a relationship with a partner, with a lover, with our family, with our children, with our coworkers, with our team, with our boss, with our friends, with our community, whatever those relationships are, it starts right here with us learning about ourselves and taking the time and putting forth the effort, because it's much easier, so much easier to just go through life on autopilot, to do what people expect us to do, to not take the time and sit back and say, you know what, life is short. What do I really want out of it? And I'm halfway through. What do I really want out of it for me? Right. And so, taking this time, it's only going to serve you in the long run, although it will be a little uncomfortable in the moment, because growth, anytime something is growing, including ourselves, it can be uncomfortable. but sitting with that discomfort and feeling into all those emotions. And this is a beautiful segue into the final pillar of the La Dolce Vita method, which is vibrancy. And what I love about vibrancy is, yes, it is kind of being vibrant in our personality and our, energy, in our, what we're radiating out there, because being vibrant also helps us feel more youthful, right? But feeling vibrant is also all about what we're sensing, what our body is literally feeling, as well as our emotions that we're feeling, right? So a lot of times we've been taught to keep our emotions to ourselves, that certain emotions are bad and certain emotions are good. And we want to just stay in the good and, repress the bad feelings or emotions. And that directly leads to disease and accelerated aging. It's the opposite of smart aging and aging vibrantly, right? It like throws us right into accelerated aging. And so I'm going to invite you right now to, if you feel you can, to close your eyes. Put your hands either on your heart or one hand on your one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, or maybe both hands on the thighs. Uncross your legs, bring your feet to the ground if you're sitting, and just take a few deep breaths. Into your heart, into your belly. And exhale. You can sigh a little if that feels good. It's nice to make some noise with your voice. One more. And then just start to notice, like, how's your head feeling? What about your eyes, your forehead? Is it strained? Is it tight? Is your jaw clenched? Is your tongue relaxed? Is your throat gripping? Is your neck tight or loose? What about your shoulders? So we're just scanning our body. Don't change anything, just noticing. Noticing where your arms are, how your hands feel, your chest, your mid-back, your belly, your hips, your pelvis, the bowl of your pelvis, your thighs, the parts of your thighs that are sitting in the chair, the parts of the tops of your thighs that are more exposed, your inner thighs, your knees. Take another deep breath as we go down the shins into the feet. And then just gently, slowly make your way back up through the body, feet, ankles, calves, knees, upper legs, pelvis, spine, belly, heart, throat, neck, shoulders, fingers, face, head. And then what I'd like you to do is I'll invite you to open your eyes back up. And just write down or notice what you felt. Maybe it was tightness, maybe it was pain, maybe it was something that felt good, open, relaxed. Maybe it was something surprising. And then writing that down, if you can, think about the emotion that goes with that. Was there a feeling or emotion that sat in that sensation in your body? And this is a big key to unlocking vibrancy in ourselves, is to notice where we're holding certain emotions and what those emotions are, and then giving them some love and attention, right? And that, again, is a whole nother area, conversation, course, if you will, but a little bit of a morsel, little bite, little taste of how to scan your body, how to find those emotions and how to give them a seat at the table to welcome them instead of pushing them in the shadow. Because again, doing that is going to lead to accelerated aging and disease, right? Which is what we don't want. So how do we bring in more vibrancy? Really, it's through our senses. It's through more sensuality. So a lot of times I talk about sensuality and I talk about sexuality. Those two aren't the same, right? We can be in our sensuality without having sex or sexuality to have anything to do with it. Now, if we want to invite that in, then great, that can be part of it. But I don't want anyone thinking like, because I know a lot of us in midlife as women have pushed away our sexual beings, right? And especially as we age, that tends to fall by the wayside. And that's another paradigm I want to shift is how do we bring back in more sensuality, which then adds to our sexuality as we age, because why not, right? We deserve that. But getting back to sensuality. So using our senses, right? Hearing, taste, sight, smell, and touch. Those are our five senses. And then if you think of like energetically, we have our sixth sense, right? But we aren't going to go into that right now. So what can you do in your daily life that brings your senses to life, right? So it could be, you can see behind me, behind the mic, I have some fresh flowers. I love roses. That brings me such delight to my senses, right? I see them, they're beautiful. I smell them, they smell good. And, you know, that's my thing. It could be lighting a candle. It could be drinking a delicious cup of something warm, coffee, tea, bone broth, whatever is your jam. It could be taking a bubble bath. It could be being out in nature, listening to the birds sing. It could be sticking your head in a big bush of jasmine. Oh my gosh, all the jasmine is blooming right now. And that is so intoxicating to me. I love it. If we're ever on a walk and we're walking by jasmine, you better believe I'm going to just stop and stick my head and just breathe it in all the goodness because it delights my senses so much. So this is what I'm talking about when we talk about bringing more sensuality into our lives, more vibrancy, right? And then if you're willing to ask you a little bit more about like what lights you up, and that could be what brings more fun in your life. Maybe it's going out with girlfriends. Maybe it's taking a vacation. Maybe it is exploring something more through your sexuality, right? Bringing in toys or bringing in conversations or fun lingerie, like all of these things, having fun text with your partner or whoever you like having sexy text with, right? So it starts with our senses. And then if we want, only if you want, if it doesn't light you up, then don't feel pushed into doing something like that. But then you can start exploring more around your desire, around your vibrancy, around your sexuality as a human, as a woman. Like, what does that mean? What feels good? What doesn't feel good? And how do you like make sure you communicate that with others? And finally, embracing all of our emotions, right? So not putting aside certain aspects of our character or personality or emotions because we were taught that it was bad, but instead accepting all of who we are, right? I like to call it my board of directors. And I have like boss Nicole at the board of directors table. I have sensitive Nicole. I have bitchy Nicole. I have whiny Nicole. I have sexy Nicole. I have smart Dr. Nicole, right? Like there's so many of me. And no, I'm not schizophrenic, at least I don't think. I don't have multiple personality disorder, but we all embrace or we don't embrace. We all have these various parts of us. And until we embrace and accept and bring to the table all parts of us, there's always going to be something left behind, something nagging at us, and something that is going to start causing underlying stress, which then leads to inflammation, which then leads to accelerated aging. So I think you're getting the picture now, right? Like, this isn't frivolous stuff when I'm talking about our emotions, when I'm talking about sensuality, when I'm talking about feeling good in our bodies. This is important and critical to living a long, healthy life. And so, my friends, midlife is our opportunity. This is our chance, and we won't get a lot of them because today is the youngest we will ever be. This is our chance to allow for the transformation. This is our opportunity to allow for the evolution. This is our opportunity to allow for the amplification of our desires, for the exploration, for the curiosity, right? For really alchemizing all our past experiences that have brought us to this moment in our life and alchemizing that into some sort of magic, into some sort of gold, that instead of being judgmental, ashamed, and guilty for whatever happened up to this point, we take that and say, this is who made me, where I'm at now. And now what I'm doing is going to make the rest of me. So that when I am 103, looking back, I will say that time of my life was not squandered. I gave it all I had. I took all that I could. I was able to feel more alive, more connected, more appreciated, more empowered, not taking for granted that I have so much time left, but realizing time is finite. Life is short and life is very long. And that journey is what we have. And so I am inviting you to think about how you want to age in a way that is more sexy, in a way that is smart, in a way that feels good, in a way that is so vibrant and so alive and so rich with goodness. That is my invitation to you. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time on this Lunch and Learn of the Future Her Summit. I want to thank Suzanne again for inviting me. And I want to thank you for spending your time, which we cannot get more of. That's our most precious resource as we age, is our time. And so I want to extend just what a pleasure and honor it's been. And I hope to see you in the future, either in my DMs as a follower. I'm at Dr. Nicole Marcioni on Instagram. My email is Nicole at integrativeaging.com. My website is integrativeaging.com. And I would love to offer, and I hope this is okay, but if it's not, we can cut it out of the recording. I want to offer, it's my birthday week. So I am offering my signature program called The Sensual Sage. And SAGE, SAGE, stands for Sophisticated, Audacious, Genius, and Epic. And it's this beautiful course on empowerment for women as we age. And I would love to make an offer for $99. It's normally $777, but I just am so committed to spreading this message, especially in this community that Suzanne has created. And so I hope you take advantage. The code will be, I will give the link to Suzanne, and the code will be Summit. All right. And that'll take it down to $99. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the summit. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope my flight isn't too bouncy because I get motion sickness. And I will see you on the internet. And yeah, come follow along my travels in Italy. It's always a fun, good, and sensual time. All right. Have a fabulous, fabulous day. And I will talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao, ciao.